All right. Well, we have been trying to once a month do our what we call our Westport talk, and that is a time where we try to interview different people or have a different topic that we're talking about in greater depth. And tonight, I had asked Bob and Jane if they would to come and join me up here on the platform. Y'all can make your way on up here, and David Curtis is going to join us as well. He's going to talk a little bit about his mission trip to Uganda, but with all that's going on over in Western Carolina and East Tennessee and so forth, I thought this would be a good, I'm going to sit right here, Jane. So, you get the flowered one. You and David are flowered children, but anyway, thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to hear, particularly from Bob and Jane, their perspective on things, because they used to work with the disaster relief team with the North Carolina Baptist on mission. So I know they'll have some things to share and bring us up to speed on that. So we'll go ahead and get started here. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to start out. You heard a little bit from David this morning about his mission trip. So I'm going to start out with Bob. And Bob, why don't, first of all, just give everybody a quick overview of how you came to Christ, and I'm looking for the Reader's Digest version, okay? So, but just tell us quickly how y'all came to Christ and how y'all came together to meet each other for marriage and so forth.
Well, okay. I was saved at 10 years old.
Where'd you live?
I lived in Graham, North Carolina. It's just the other side of Greensboro, right next to Burlington. It's the county seat of Alamance. It's a little town. It was back then. It's not. It's merged into Burlington now almost. But everybody in the town knew everybody at that time. I went to a little church called Riverside Baptist Church down on Highway 54. It's right on the river. It's right on the river, and it was in what they called back then revival meeting, a spring revival meeting in April. And the church, that church, you could fit almost 4 of them in this sanctuary. That's how small the church was. But to me, it was huge back then as a 10-year-old. And one evening, I can tell you it was on a Tuesday evening of the revival meeting that they used to call them. I went forward and gave my life to Jesus Christ. And it changed me. I mean, I've not been always what I should have been, but I've always been trying to move towards God. It's further closer to Him, always in my life. I grew up in a Christian home. My mother and father and my sister and myself, we all went to church together. Everything we did was centered around church. And, we used to go to church 3 times on Sunday. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon for, I said, what did they call it? Training union. And it was supposed to be discipleship. They called it training union. And then the evening service. And then again on Wednesday nights. And then again sometimes, other times during the week. But we were always in church. And I praise my mother and father for doing that, for putting us in church and not just sending us, but going with us and being involved as well. They were very involved in the church. So that's how I came to know the Lord. And I grew up and left home at 18, went off to the Army, went to Vietnam. And I don't think if it hadn't been for my relationship with Jesus Christ, I don't know where I would have made it through it or not. Actually, one night we were overrun, and there was 3 of us on a bunker position together, and a mortar round came in, and when I got up off the ground, those 2 guys on each side, I was in the middle between them, and those 2 guys were dead, and I was alive. And I can only thank God had something else for me to continue. And I've always looked at that as God driving me further, closer to Him. And some other things that's happened in my life that I seen God was in it, and I just praise Him for all He's done for me. Jane, we met on the internet, so she was.
I didn't know they had the internet back in the '60s.
We've only
Oh,
been
okay.
12 years. We've only been married 12 years, but both of us spouses died within a couple of years at the same time, and then we met. So that's us.
All right, great. Jane, where did you grow up? How old were you when you got saved?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Hold it a little bit closer though.
Okay. I was born in Colorado, but grew up in Greensboro area, out in a real rural area. I was on a dirt road where there was only one home across the street, and it was tenant farmers. My home was not an abusive home, but I was a neglected kid. There were probably 8 young men or boys across the street from me in that one house. So for the first number of years in school, I was a real tomboy. I could fight and keep up with the rest of them. Later, the family that moved in, probably around the 2nd, 3rd grade, there were 2 girls, and their father was one who would drink and get real abusive, and he was a harsh man, and I was terrified of the man. And in the summers when we didn't have food, I didn't see my family much. I'd go 3 weeks and not even see my family. They were middle income, worked at public work, well-dressed, well-mannered. They just didn't spend any time at home. The home was not a happy home, so they avoided it. And about 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, I began to find Bible schools that I could attend. In the summer, early in the summer when there's nothing to eat, you can go to Bible school and get fed. And that was the main reason I sought out all these Bible schools. I found church buses. I went to the Friends Bible School. I went to the Methodist. I went to the Baptist. I went any place that had a Bible school. That's where I went in the summer. And probably around the 4th grade, the man across the street that I was so afraid of was saved in a Baptist church. And not only did I see the change in him, but he's the one that took an interest in me and carried me to church through a church service the first time where I was saved. I really believe those Bible schools laid the groundwork. They laid the foundation so that the first time I heard the gospel presented from the pulpit, I responded to it and I was baptized. And immediately people began to say, "What's happened to you? Why are you different? What's going on?" So it gave me the chance to start telling them. And I think back often about that. That man was not educated. He couldn't read or write. He could not drive. He did not have a driver's license. He was crippled from polio. He worked in a mill. The most unlikely person in the world you would think would care about a young person or reach out and lead somebody into a situation where they could be saved. And I kept in contact with him for years until he died. But they were more my family than my own. I got involved in this mission work when I was at a Baptist church between here and Charlotte. And the first time I went was overseas. First mission trip I'd ever been on was a construction trip. And we'll talk about that more later, how we got involved in what all it was involved, okay?
All right. All right, David, your chance to tell your how you came to Christ, where you grew up and all, and just the quick version of how you got to where you are here at Westport.
I was born and raised in Mooresville on the other side of Lake Norman. At that time, Mooresville was just a small southern textile town. Everybody worked for the mill or provided services to mill workers. My father was a loom fixer in the mill, And Southside Baptist Church was kind of the textile workers Baptist church right across the street from the big Burlington Mill there in Mooresville. So they took me there as a young child, and I was saved at age 11. And then grew up, went through high school there, and went to UNC Chapel Hill, and was about to get drafted and sent to Vietnam, which I didn't want to do, so I got into Air Force ROTC. And so the day I graduated from Carolina, I got a commission in the Air Force, and got a 4-year delay to go to optometry school. Then graduated from optometry school and went active duty as an optometrist and spent 5 years active duty in the Air Force. Then came back. I was going to go to Mooresville and open a practice, but a friend of mine opened a year before, so I came on this side of the lake to Denver and opened Carolina Eye Care in 1977. And just ran the practice and raised a family, and finally in 1999 went to India on a medical mission trip and came back just blown away by the incredible need for eye care in developing countries. It just had somehow never occurred to me how difficult it was to get glasses in a third world country. They're not readily available like they are here. And so I was blown away by the incredible need for eye care, and blown away with the fact that it's a great evangelism tool, because in a lot of countries, eye exam and a pair of glasses can cost a week's wages or more. And if you're struggling just to feed your family, it's just that cost is just out of reach for you. So my first mission trip was a big failure medically, because everything I'd been told about how to do an eye clinic in the third world country was wrong. So it was a real big failure. So I started trying to develop techniques and procedures that would work in a third world environment, and trying to recruit eye doctors, and had almost no success recruiting eye doctors. So I got frustrated and decided if I can't recruit any eye doctors, I'll just train some. So I kept going on mission trips, and by 2007 or 2006, I developed what I thought was a pretty effective system. So I did my first eye doc in a box seminar in 2007 and trained some folks on how to do eye clinics. And since then, I've trained about 2,000 laymen, and we as a group have seen about 3 million patients. And in Uganda was my 89th trip, so I've treated about 86,000.
89?
So I've treated about 86,000 patients. But the big deal is the students. I was in Uganda. 2 of my students had never done an eye clinic in a developing country, so they work with me for a day and examine patients. And so now they're totally independent. They don't need me anymore. They can go do eye clinics on their own. And as I tell them, you can go see 200 patients or 20,000 patients. It's totally up to you. And so doing eye doc in a box is what I'm focusing on now. I'm trying to get the seminar online so anybody with access to the internet can have access to it. And just trying to make eye doc in a box independent, so when I'm no longer involved, it'll keep going as a ministry. And that's my goal now. So I'm writing a book about how to do an eye clinic in a third world environment. Every book on eye care in developing countries is written by an ophthalmologist, and it focuses on eye anatomy and eye pathology. But the problem is the World Health Organization says 1 billion people need eye care that don't have access to it. 100 million need treatment of eye disease, and 900 million just need a pair of glasses. So every book focuses on the 10% and ignores the 90%. So I'm writing a book about how to deal with that 90%, because it's a 100% probability of needing eye care if you live a normal lifespan. The only way to avoid it is to die young, and nobody seems to choose that alternative, so most people need eye care. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, is focusing on that, trying to go up to the mountains and do eye clinics up there for the folks that lost their glasses in the hurricane, but I'm really struggling to make any connections. It just seems to be total chaos up there. Nobody seems to know what's going on, and FEMA has totally dropped the ball. They've given all their money to illegal aliens, so they don't have any money. And so it's just a real challenge up there.
Okay. And so when were you at Bowling Air Force Base?
When was I where?
Weren't you at Bowling Air Force Base?
I was at Bowling. Yeah, that was my last assignment. I was Rachel and I spent 2 years at Incirlik Regional Hospital in Incirlik, Turkey. And then in 75, I went to bowling and separated January 15th, 77.
Okay, so you were just
So 76.
you're about 6 years ahead of me. I was at bowling. Well, I went to bowling quite a bit, but anyway. All right. So you and Rachel Lynn knew each other growing up.
Her father was a pastor and became the pastor at Berea Baptist Church on 150 on this side of Mooresville when we were in the 11th grade. So she moved to Mooresville in the 11th grade, and we started dating in the 12th grade.
Can you tell us any good stories about her?
Nothing I can share publicly now.
All right. All right. Well, Bob, let me jump over here with you on obviously everybody is really sensitive to and tuned in to the disaster, particularly here in Western North Carolina. They seem to have caught the brunt of this, and I'm just wondering what, as somebody, you and Jane have been involved. What's the official name? North Carolina.
Now it's the North Carolina Baptist on Mission. It originally started in the late 70s with as the North Carolina Baptist Men and Auxiliary. And the reason was that there was more women involved in it than there were men. There still are in lots of cases. And there's I'm going to say old people because I'm one.
Seniors.
Seniors, there's more seniors involved in it than there are young, because seniors have time to go, you know. But and some of us got to the point we can't do
Yeah,
it.
well,
much
it's like a couple of the younger men today. They've got children in their home, they're working, and they're like, man, I really
That's
would
right.
love to go over to West North Carolina, but I can't do it right now.
That's
You know,
right.
It makes
That's
sense.
right. That's an issue. And that's the thing with, Jane and I, since her eyes has gotten bad, we've not really been able to go in any disaster relief things since then. But we used to go on quite often, and I still get the emails when they have a disaster and they'll say, okay, we're on standby, and then they'll send another email that says, all right, get with your team, it's time to go, and that last week that's what happened. And it was kind of unusual because they usually don't send out the alert status as early as they did this time. I think they perceived that it was really going to be bad here, and so some of them, like, they placed some of the feeding units up ahead of time, which is unusual, really. But they did a good job this time. But there are other organizations other than North Carolina Baptist on Mission that do good too, like Samaritan's Purse, and there are some others. But you also got to be careful. There's a lot of fly-by-nighters out there. There's a lot of people posting. If you go on Facebook, you'll see a lot of people posting, well, we want to do this and we want to do that. But the problem is a lot of times they won't even let you in the area if you don't have some kind of recognition. It's not that they don't need the help. It's just they're afraid of scammers, you know, and it happens so much so. But like I said, North Carolina Baptist Disaster Relief started in the late 70s. And in the early 80s, they bought a tractor and trailer was their first unit, and they moved it to Caraway near Ashboro, Caraway Conference Center, and volunteers went on the weekends of putting it together, putting feeding units in it, making it available to cook out of and stuff. And they kept doing this on a voluntary basis until 1984. And let me I got a few notes here. On March the 24th, 1984, the worst tornado outbreak in North Carolina history tore through Red Springs, North Carolina, and Robeson County at approximately 7:30 p.m. that evening. By less than 24 hours after that, the North Carolina Baptist Men at that time was notified and to go and help. So by 6:30 the next day, or less than 24 hours after that tornado touched down, and just hours after receiving the call, a disaster relief team unit was there in Red Springs, set up at the First Baptist Church of Red Springs, and that was the very first time that they ever was deployed to a disaster. And they have grown tremendously since then. when I first trained, was many years ago. I was actually the director of our Baptist men's group at our church, and some of the men says, "Well, maybe we ought to get involved in this." So myself and my brother-in-law, we went to Cary and was trained on that unit, that first unit they ever. And boy, it was kind of a wreck compared to things today. But anyway, I trained on that. I've been to a couple of the earlier hurricanes that came across North Carolina long before Jane and I ever met. And I've been to several other places. I've been to Honduras one time with them. And so, but it's grown over the years. It's grown so much over the years that they have. It's one of the most well-known Baptist disaster relief teams in the country. North Carolina is. As a matter of fact, they got so well that it is the only religious group that has a sitting member on the American Red Cross board. That's
They have what kind of a member?
A member of the North Carolina Baptist State Convention sits on the board of the American Red Cross. And it's the only religious organization that's on the board of the American Red Cross. And a lot of times, and now you see where they deployed to major disasters like this, but they also go to smaller disasters too. We went to one in South Carolina a few years back where it was a localized flooding, care and laundry units and communications. They've got all these units. But I'm going to tell you right now, feeding is the hardest job of them all.
So does the North Carolina Baptist go outside of North Carolina?
They have. They actually, I think it's 1989, there was a hurricane in Honduras, and they deployed to Honduras that year. They have done it before. And Jane, I think her first one was outside of the country.
Sri Lanka.
So now,
Sri Lanka.
Now, one of those trucks, let me ask you this first. So there's, within the North Carolina Baptist on Mission, you've got the disaster relief team, but there's a couple of other teams too, isn't there?
Yeah, there's what they call a rebuild unit too. And actually, in 2018, when the last hurricane, I think it was, hit North Carolina coast, they now have, I looked it up the other day, they still have 73 houses to rebuild in eastern North Carolina. They didn't used to do this until this is relatively recent, that they'll go and stay in an area for an extended period of time. They've been there since 2018. Now, in West North Carolina, they're going to probably be there 5 years or better. Deployed. Not just, not feeding, but they'll be rebuilding.
Right. So the disaster relief team is kind of the initial group.
It all comes under that same umbrella. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So the feeding truck, I remember I got an email or something from the state convention said they were deploying that, and that went over a few days before the storm hit.
Yes.
They were trying to get set up, but I think you told me that they can feed 30,000 people a day. How do they do that? How do you feed 30,000 people?
All right, Jane, I'm going to let you do it. She's the expert on that feeding unit.
Hold it close to you.
Let me start back a little bit. The Baptist Men is a huge organization. Disaster relief is just one segment of what they do. It's a big segment, but it's only one. They have ministries in Romania and other countries. They have dental buses, all kinds of other activities going on. The disaster relief is linked to the Red Cross. The Red Cross goes into an area and evaluates it, and then they call in the disaster relief group from North Carolina Baptist Men to do the cooking. What happens is the Red Cross has the food. They have it in storage ahead of time. They have like 12 meals that they call and say, I need 40,000 of number 12 or number 2 or number 3, and they know exactly what pallet to pick up and ship to them. And these pallets come in on semi-trucks in frozen sections and refrigerated sections and regular storage sections. They bring them in on pallets. These big trailers that they have, I think 5. It's called Manna One. It's like a trailer that when it's set up, there's a canvas room on each side that opens out. On the one side, they bring the food in, they cook it in the middle, and they serve it on the other side in that big room. The Red Cross has trucks. They will come in, they will drop off their trash, they will drop off their dirty containers, they will stop, pick up more containers of food, and go out and distribute in the community. They also do walk-in people. They pour the food in these Cambros, they're called. They look like coolers, but they can cook them and keep them to a certain temperature, and they only lose 1 degree an hour. So they can sit for a long time in those delivery trucks and stuff without being at a temperature that's dangerous. And they measure all these temperatures. They know exactly what they're doing. When they dispatch an emergency disaster team to an area, it involves a lot of other accessory things, a place for those workers to sleep, a communications trailer for them to communicate, because usually everything else is down. They have you licensed and tagged, and a lot of times your cars don't even go in. You have to ride a bus in as a group. They have things like the laundry unit. They'll send a baby care unit. They'll send water for purification. They go in and evaluate it and decide how much of this disaster equipment they need. They even have a hospital that they set up in Alabama when the hurricane wiped out their hospital, and they used that hospital for 2 years. It was complete with lab, x-ray, the whole works. The staff there used that hospital until they were able to rebuild. I've known the disaster relief to go out west when the forest fires were out there, and they would do showers and sleeping arrangements and food for the firefighters. I didn't get to go out there, but also this disaster relief is in many other countries. We went to Haiti. I went to Sri Lanka 3 times for the disaster relief. When they go in, they have what's called mud out. That means getting people with tarps on the roof in a safe situation where power lines and gas are up and out of no danger. Get it where they can sleep in their house even if it's not fixed. Get chainsaws to get all the trees out of their driveway, that kind of stuff. That's the initial mud out section. But then there will be a long-term group that'll come back for years and rebuild. They apply for the help, and they go through their applications and stuff, and later on they will be rebuilding houses. We've been up to Cook in Catawba, where 3 years later they were still sending work crews out, and we cooked at a church, just Bob and I alone cooked at that church for the work crews that were going out. So cooking is in all stages, from just you and your husband doing it to the full team out. There's a lot of variations in what they do, but when they're at full tilt, like at Katrina, each one of those amount of units could make 60,000 meals a day. It worked them hard, but that's what they could do in one day. And there's hot meals that are cooked, and they're served in the styrofoam containers and stuff.
It's amazing. 60,000 meals a day. One trailer can do up to that.
And they have 5.
How many trailers do we have?
I think there's 5.
There's 5 of those big ones, but they do also have a lot of smaller ones too for more localized disasters.
Right.
And I was going to say that after every one of these disasters, they go back and reevaluate. And every time they reevaluate, they find something else they should have done or could have done, so they change it or buy more equipment that they need for certain things. And everybody remember Hurricane Andrew in Florida. Well, there are 3,000 North Carolina Baptist workers were in Florida for that disaster. 3,000. And every time one of those has happened, they've gotten a little better at it. And I'll just tell you this, the one that we went to in South Carolina, which was just the feeding of the workers, that was one of the better ones we went. The worst one, I think Jane agreed with me, the worst one we ever went on to together was Detroit. That was, I think, it had to be the worst one. They had a heavy rain and had floods, and their system, their drainage system is also tied in with their sewer system. They call it a one-pipe system. We have what we today here call a two-pipe system. They're not connected. The drainage runoff is not connected to the sewer. Up there it is. So when the river backed up, everything backed up into the homes, and every home up there just about's got a basement. And in that basement, they have a floor drain. And guess what? All that sewer water backed right up into those. That's the worst one we ever been on. We had to wear hazmat suits to clean all those basements out. And that was tough. Those real steep steps, narrow steps. We had freezers and refrigerators full of food that had been sitting there for 3 months with food in it with no electricity. So we took duct tape and taped them together and hauled them up with all the food in them out to the curb. And I think that's the worst one I've ever been on.
So where was that?
Detroit.
All right. So tell me this. I know that, well, how do they incorporate the gospel into this? I know that that is an emphasis, but what can you expect from right now going on? How are they making sure that these are becoming gospel opportunities?
One of the things that people can be trained on be counselors and chaplains. That's how they do it. And when they will say, okay, we need you to be an assessor today. I want you to go down to so many streets. I want you to assess. Well, when these assessors go door to door, they take time to speak to them about the gospel. And then, of course, we have the chaplains as well. When there's maybe a loss, they'll have the chaplains. Jane and I trained as chaplains. That was the last thing we did before we stopped going. But that's how they do it. And they also, one of the things they do, a lot of the feeding units, they serve so many that the Red Cross will come and pick up and go distribute. But they also they have tables there at the Mount of Ones, and the people can come by and sit down, and they have a chance to talk to them. And there's many ways they use chainsaw crews. They're trained to talk to the people. Take time to talk to the people, not just do the work, but go out there, spend time with the people, and make relationships with them. And that's how the gospel is spread.
All right, good. So tell me this: what about? Are there liability issues? You know, what if you got a group that goes into some house and they're trying to cut a tree off of a house or something, and the people decide that, well, that team, they made things worse. They messed up my house. Have you ever heard anything like that, or do you know anything about how they
There have been some small issues and nothing major that's happened, but if it did, they carry liability insurance. The North Carolina Baptist, what we give to the North Carolina Baptist, part of that goes by insurance. You're covered. Now, also too, if we got up a trip to go to India, let's just say on a mission trip, we can actually get insurance to cover us while we're in India through the North Carolina Baptist. So they keep the insurance on everything and everybody. If you go under their umbrella, you're covered, liability-wise, accident-wise, and so on.
When I've been in countries where there was rebel upheaval, like Sri Lanka had machine gun bunkers all around and manned armed guards everywhere, but we had our one-on-one personal guard with us all the time. They watched us. They took care of us. And when I went to Haiti, we were housed in a guarded wire enclosure along with Samaritan's Purse. And when we went out for a medical clinic, even the local police came in and moved us out. One day there were like 50 policemen showed up and moved us out because there was a riot coming down the street. They watch you close, Americans in other countries like that. This group has been real good about managing our airline flights, getting us in and out of countries that could be a problem, and watching us and housing us when we were there to keep us safe. I've never felt like I was at risk.
Okay, all right. Anything else y'all want to add to into that? Bob, looks like you've got a few notes there.
Yeah, I wanted to say that every year, the North Carolina Baptist on Mission have a conference, a missions conference. This last 2 years, it was actually in Charlotte. And when you go to this conference, it's a Friday night and a Saturday. It's like $20, and that gives you a meal for Friday night and Saturday. And they have well-known speakers come in, and plus they have all these breakout sessions from the North Carolina Baptist on Mission. They train you, and they also have set up all of the different trailers and stuff to show you how they operate as well.
So I guess they have no problem cooking the meals for the people there.
They have no problem. Well, they usually have Chick-fil-A for the lunch. Now they do cook the Friday evening meal, but the Saturday meal they usually cater it out from Chick-fil-A or whatever.
I was just fun.
Yeah, but and so this year it's going to be in March. Got it written down here. March the 14th and 15th. But this year it's going to be at Calvary Baptist Church in Winston-Salem. But if anybody was interested, that would be the good place to start to see if you wanted to get into the training and what part of the training you wanted to do.
Yeah, and we've got some people in our church that have already expressed an interest in maybe us starting a team here. So, I
and
think
it's
we're gonna look into that.
possible. It's possible now. They break up North Carolina into 8 regions. 10 regions. We in Region 8 here, and every spring, half of those regions do training in their region. So, say this spring, I don't know yet where Region 8 will actually have any training, or it might be one of the neighboring regions, but they can go to that local, closer training, but you can train on just about anything they've got. They'll have the people there to train you.
Right. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Bob and Jane regarding the disaster relief? Tom? I'll let you ask, and I'm going to repeat the question so we'll have it on video.
They have it.
So Bob was asking about a staging area, needing a staging area in our area, or Tom was asking about that, and Bob's going to.
The Denver Baptist Church has it. They got that big warehouse out back, and they keep the stuff in there. There's a whole great big unit there.
Anybody else? All right.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
If you're interested in being a part of this, you can go online and you can register through their website. And they have you fill out all your personal information and even a testimony. And then your pastor's name is on there, and you submit that to them for approval. Then after you're approved, then they will give you the access to their main website where you can pull up an entire list of all the ministries and missions that are happening and what the dates will be for those different mission trips through the whole year. And if it's not signed up for, you could even manage a team and take a team from here or there, or you can sometimes sign up with another church to share their team if they're willing. But it'll give you an idea months ahead of time what ministries and what missions are happening. Plus, it'll tell you a lot of information about all the other disaster work that they're doing and the training for these.
All right. Well, thank you all for sharing that. I'm going to switch gears over here to David. David just got back from Uganda, and he gave us a very brief report about his trip over there. And David, I just wanted you to take a few minutes and just let people know what they were part of and what God did while y'all were there, and how we can be praying for all that.
We had 14 people on the team. Excuse me. We divided up into 2 7-person teams. So each day in the morning, a team would go out and have a joint medical eye clinic. Most of the patients would go both to the medical area and the eye clinic. Then in the afternoon, some of the members of the team would do like a vacation Bible school. They called it Backyard Bible Club. And then late in the afternoon, they'd have a crusade. Uganda today is like America was in maybe the 50s. So crusade type events are still effective there like they were here back in the 1950s. So that's basically what we would do. We do the medical eye clinic in the morning to the early afternoon, then a backyard Bible club, and then a crusade. It's typically, and I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think we saw 1,710 patients in the eye clinic and
How many was that again?
1,710. I had trained 2 Ugandan pastors before, so there was a Ugandan pastor on each team doing eye exams, and one of my American students was doing eye exams on the other team, and I was doing eye exams. So we had 4 people doing eye exams, and we saw a total of 1,710 patients. And we left 1,000 pairs of glasses for the 2 Ugandan pastors to keep doing eye clinics after we leave. And I introduced the 3 circles to them earlier this year, and they thought it was really good. So we had another 1,000 3 circles pamphlets printed and to give out to the pastors there.
And is that printed in their language?
No, it's printed in English.
Okay.
I don't know that it's available, and language is a real issue there. They've got, Uganda was just cut out geographically by the British, and so all kind of tribes are in Uganda. So in the country of Uganda, they probably speak 10 or 15 different languages. And English is kind of the common language.
Okay.
And so all the educated folks in Uganda learn their native tribal language plus English. And it's nothing for those folks to speak 3 or 4 languages.
So at least
amazing.
if there's people in those tribes that speak English,
Right.
they can take the message of the gospel back to their people.
Right, exactly. So it was just a really, really good trip. Things went really well.
So when the people come through and they get their exam, I think that at least in the past, there's been opportunities to share the gospel with those people that you
Right.
do the exams for.
Each person, I developed an exam form, and we get their name and address and their chief eye complaint. Then we do the exam, and I write the prescription, what glasses prescription they need. They go to the optical area, get glasses. Then they go to the counseling area, and they're given an opportunity to become a Christian. And then the counselors mark the results of the counseling, keep the forms, and give it to the local pastor or the local missionary to do follow-up.
Great. Okay, that's awesome. Does anybody have any questions for David regarding his trip to Uganda?
Oh, yeah, we went to, one of the places we went to, there was a family compound close by, and we went over to look at it. And I think it was fairly typical. There was about 6 round mud huts with a thatched roof. They were about maybe 10 feet in diameter. And we started asking what was there. And the father and mother were there. No, there was a father there. He had 2 wives, and each of the 2 wives had 10 children each. So he had 20 children, and 13 of them made it to adulthood, and 7 were in that little family 7 families were in that. 7 of the children were married and had children. So there was the father, the 2 wives, 7 children, 7 spouses, and they had 23 children in the compound there, and 3 or 4 of the wives are pregnant now, so it's no telling how many kids they're going to have. So they all lived in those little round mud huts, and they had one hut that was the cooking hut. So they cooked for like 40 people. 40 people lived in that compound. The children, the father, the wives, the children, spouses, and grandchildren. And so they cook for all 40 of those out of one hut. So
That's a lot.
that's a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that it's 5 children is a small family in Uganda. 8 to 10 is kind of normal. So the population is just exploding there. So I think that's just the culture of Uganda, to have a lot of children. And the problem is, in prior generations, the children could work on the farm, but now all the land is taken up. So I don't know what all these, millions of children are going to do when they grow up, because there's no land left for them to farm. So it's going to be a real challenge.
So a lot of what I hear about Uganda, I get the impression there's a lot of turmoil and war there. Is where
there's a
you
lot-
go, is it anywhere near that, or?
No, I never felt in any danger or anything. There's just a lot of conflict because the Muslims are very aggressive trying to move into Uganda. Idi Amin was a dictator in Uganda, and he tried to turn Uganda into a Muslim country. And he was not successful, but he tried really hard to do that.
So the turmoil has quietened down a little bit
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Or?
there was no fighting, no active fighting going on. I didn't hear about any active fighting when I was there.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions? Bob? Bill? Excuse me? Bill?
No, the land is still available.
Wait 1 second. We're on video, so we're going to get this question.
Okay.
You said that the land is no longer available for farming, it's taken up. Was it taken
No,
up by?
I mean, the land is still there, but the old people, the grandparents, own the farms, and their children are farming it now. And so I don't know what the grandchildren are going to do.
So they're making more children, but they're not making any more land.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. The land is still there, but now there's a lot more people.
All right. Anybody else have a question or a thought? All right. Do y'all have anything to say in closing you want to share? All right. Well, can we thank them for sharing with us tonight? All right. All right. Well, get involved in missions, and just want you to hear of things that that you are participating in as you give to the church. And also, we want to do this so that we could have a record of what's going on with Baptist missions and refer people to that when they start asking us questions about it in the future. So appreciate Bob and Jane sharing that. Appreciate David giving us his latest update on Mission Trip 89. I guess you got 90 coming up next year. Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for this evening. And just thank you, God, for people that are serving. And just thank you for Lord David and Lord, the example he is of just taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. And I pray, God, that we would do what we can to participate in that, whether it's going or giving or praying or all of the above. And Father, I just thank you for Bob and for Jane and, Lord, their love for the gospel and their desire to reach people and to make a difference in their lives, particularly, God, with what they've been involved with disaster relief and trying to reach people through their tragedies and through the hurtful times that they may be going through. And Lord, I just pray that that our church, God, that we will have a great passion for the gospel and making disciples and ministering to those that are in our church, but Lord, those that are outside of our church that have needs. So God, we just pray that we'll honor you with our lives and give us opportunities even this week, Lord, to share the gospel and to speak into people's lives the truth of your word. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all for coming tonight. God bless you.